Welcome to I-5 The Heat. We have back Craig Khanwell, and he is going to speak on Martin Luther King, the things that we don't know about him, because most of the stuff that we see is commercialized. And the best thing about having a radio show is that we don't have to speak about Martin Luther King on the day that America celebrates him, because it's already that we don't celebrate him on his actual birthday, which is January 15th, but we had the 18th off. We can actually speak about him anytime. We're still in the month of January, and what better time than to do it now? How are you doing, Craig?
I'm fine, sister. How are you today?
I am great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so, what did you do on the 18th?
Actually, I just sat back and reflect on the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the sacrifice that he made on behalf of our people, and assess where we are right now to where we should be. Also looked at some of the commercialization of Dr. King's 1963 speech,
right,
which has nothing to do with the ever-evolving mind that he grew into towards 1967 and 1968. So that 1963 Dr. King is more palatable to the forces of white supremacy, and it keeps black people's minds in a state of subservience and obeisance to certain injustices that take place, and it doesn't allow us the capacity to study Dr. King's ever-evolving mind to get to the point that we see that he has actually challenged those forces with fierceness near the end of his life, and that is why his life was taken. It wasn't because he had a dream of joining hands in hands with little white girls and little white boys and integration as such. Because near the end of his life, he told his good friend and confidant, Brother Harry Belafonte, who's an actor, that he feared that he's trying to integrate his people into a burning house.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, like you said, we do get I have a dream speech, and they want to post this picture up and tell us what we don't know about him, and we are wrong for not actually finding the truth out, the many things that he represents. So what else are we missing?
Well, he started to see that towards the end of his life, dealing with the liberal whites and also the conservative ones, and just the white power structure in general, that integration was not working. It was to a point where we were integrating, but we were losing our base, our foundation, our own power, and our own source of strength. So he said at the end of his life, there are points at which he sees the necessity for temporary separation as a temporary way station to a truly integrated society. So what is he saying? He was saying that if a people are not fully developed to the point that they are in love with themselves, then how can they integrate into a society where they have self-hate and love for other than themselves, and truly practice principles of love if that love is not first practiced with themselves? So he got to a point where he saw that maybe black folks need to be temporarily separated so that we can see the value in ourselves. And so if we do integrate, then we can add value to a society that is already in place, already vibrant, and already moving. Much like those who come from outside of America, when they come to America, when the Chinese come, when the Koreans come, when the Japanese come, when the Europeans come, they come, but they also come with the self-knowledge, a unity and a cultural unity amongst themselves. And they maximize that cultural unity to build enclaves and communities for themselves and their children. They live in a society with others, but they have their own base and foundation of community that is full of self-love, businesses that are thriving, unity, a cultural base where they operate from, and they're not trying to give all of their wealth and their power to others outside of their community. So their dollars turn over in their community several times before it leaves, where our dollars doesn't even turn over one time.
Right.
Because they have a knowledge of self, and they love themselves, and they understand how viable it is for them to create economic opportunities in their community for themselves. We haven't learned that yet. We're just 100 years up from slavery. So our entire existence is always trying to get near to those whom have mistreated us. So we think being successful, we think progress is having white folks near to us. While others think doing business with white folk is doing business with them, but they have a separate foundation so that when they do business with white folk or the dominant society, they do business from a position of strength and not from a position of weakness. So I think when he was talking about that temporary separation, he was saying that we need to be healed first before we try to integrate into a society. And there again, like I said earlier, near the end of his life, he started to see that he was integrating his people into a burning house.
Okay. So what do you think, had he lived, when do you think that he would have integrated his people, us, in with the rest of the world and the rest of the races? When do you think that would have came about?
Well, I don't know, but I do know that he was looking more towards us getting our own act together, getting our own house in order before we try to integrate that house into another. Unfortunately, they snuffed him out before he had the opportunity to do that. In fact, the last speech that he was going to make prior to his assassination is Why America May Go to Hell. That was the sermon that he was going to preach when he was supposed to leave Memphis and go to Atlanta. That was the sermon he was going to deliver, Why America May Go to Hell. Because he started to see the hypocrisy amongst those Caucasians who were in power and prosecuting a war on Vietnam, and that money was supposed to be or should have been used to help galvanize the poor in this country. That's when he was starting his Poor People's Campaign. And he saw that the American government really had no interest in really lifting poor people up. So being a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, of course, he was always lenient and leaning towards the poor. And he recognized that a country that does not take care of its poor, that does not take care of its weak, it's a country that is going to hell. So he coined his sermon, Why America May Go to Hell. But he never got a chance to deliver that sermon.
Okay, with him not having a chance to deliver that sermon, did he ever maybe already write it? Is there a copy out there already?
I don't know of a copy, but I'm thinking that if he coined that phrase and he wrote something down that was related to that topic, but I don't have access to it. But I'm sure there is. I just don't have access to it.
Okay. Now, also, had he lived today, he would be 87. He was born in January 15th, 1929. Had he lived till this very day, what do you think he would think of America today, 2016, and the police brutality that's going on, and our people being, like you said, snuffed out or discriminated against? What do you think he would say right now?
The same thing he said in 1967 and 1968. This is one of his quotes. He said that, why is equality so assiduously avoided? Why does white America delude itself? And how does she rationalize the evil it retains? The majority of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro. They believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia embodying racial harmony. But unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity. This is what he had to say about white America. So he was calling them on their hypocrisy. And if he was alive today, he would be calling white America on its hypocrisy of claiming freedom, justice, and equality for all, but while altogether practicing something different. And so that is what is happening now in 2016. We are actually living the 1960s over again.
Right.
Because we have not made much advancement, other than a few of us have more material wealth, but the masses of our people are slipping further and farther behind.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. If we would come together, work together, like you said, as far as other communities, grouping together and staying within their own community to build worth and wealth, and then coming into America and being able to move around freely. If we did the exact same thing, it would be so much easier for us today. But I don't know. I guess because of slavery, that has really set us back. And they had us believing that we were stupid and dumb and ugly. And that, I believe, that stayed with us even till today, that's the reason why we can't advance the way other nationalities do.
This is interesting because during Reconstruction, we made some of the most advances as a people. We created our own townships. We had Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had Rosewood, among others, that black folk were very successful and prospering, thriving and striving. And unfortunately, that was right after we got out of slavery, not too long after we got out of slavery. So we can't really use that excuse. I think that what the white supremacy and racist power structure has been able to do was to continuously assault our minds to the point where we are actually now farther behind in our intellectual and spiritual concept of ourselves than we were during slavery.
Right.
So we were actually making more progress coming up out of slavery than we're making right now. We're doing things now that we never did right out of slavery to one another. The self-hatred has now grown and developed from a baby snake to a dragon. So we can't necessarily slavery was the root foundation of it, but they kept the Willie Lynch mindset so prevalent and so advanced. They kept advancing it. And so now it has taken on a life of its own.
Right.
That the slave master no longer has to have us on the plantation as such. He has institutionalized and systemically created his mindset in such a way where we have been educated and fed that mindset till it's become self-refueling. So he no longer has to be present for us to act like we're acting, to do like we're doing, because we are also now on remote control. Right. So they have done a better job after slavery than they have done during slavery. Because now we have a mental and spiritual lobotomy. And that's like we don't even have a brain to think, to act, and to conduct ourselves in that which is in our own best interest as a people.
I would agree with you. I think today there's so much TV. There's so many ways to interact with what's going on, TV, internet, what have you. And so I think they poison our minds with the filth and the TV shows, Love and Hip Hop, and shows about us fighting each other. I think that's poisoning our people, and we're confusing it for entertainment when actually it's doing more harm than good. And so, it's really taken away from our power. It's taken away where we can build, we can make more money if we don't engage in that kind of activity or entertainment. So what do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think that we have become so used to doing things which embellish the society. We're sports figures, we're athletes, we're entertainers. These are the things that embellish a civilization. And we haven't been taught how we have contributed to meaningful pursuits in this society as a people. So we see ourselves as buffoons, as clowns. Too many of us do, not all, but too many of us do. So we cut the fool, we act a fool because we have been given an arena to function like that, where we can get a pat on the back, we can get more money, we can get more recognition. Some of the music that's out there nowadays ain't saying a damn thing,
right,
but they just saying silly things. And the company record executives are shelling out a lot of money to the most ignorant sounds that are out there.
Right.
Because they want that kind of a display lack of intelligence coming from us. Because that is not threatening that is not the antithetical threat to their system of white supremacy. They always want that system in place. And so they want to make sure that they finance and fund those of our people who are not a threat to that. So we won't hear anything about our meaningful pursuits, the intellectual prowess that we have, the creativity that we have, that have made this civilization great. So they keep giving us those kinds of imageries that assault our intellect. And then we become exactly what they give us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they only feel threatened when we are in power to buy them out of something. Like, for example, I think a good example is Bill Cosby. This whole thing coming up, Bill Cosby, and 50 million people coming out the woodworks 30 years later. How convenient, you know? But this all didn't come about until Mr. Cosby wanted to buy NBC or something to that nature, you know? So what you're saying is, I agree 100%, because when they feel threatened, they'll come after us, and they don't make it easy for us to go ahead and buy into something that's positive and that we can go ahead and hold up 10 people, 100 people, 500 of our own people, and we can make ourselves shine. But now when we do all this foolishness and they can make a dime off of us being stupid, that's all fun and games for them. And like you said, it's non-threatening.
Well, we have consented to live under their rule. We as a people have consented. We have agreed to their subjugation of us. The NCAA playoffs made $527 million off of the exploits and supreme talent of the black football players, for the most part. Those black football players didn't get paid a dime. But the money went to those institutions that they played for, and to the athletic departments that they played for, and to the coaches who made millions of dollars in bonuses that they played for. So we have consented to allow ourselves to be subjugated by a system that is diametrically opposed to our rise. So we have to make up our minds as a people. We're not talking about violence here. We're just talking about being united and having the courage and the testicular fortitude and the ovarian audacity to stand up against that which is not in our best interest. And we can only allow white supremacy to place black mannequins in front of us to sell us the idea that we really have true freedom, justice, and equality in this nation. We don't have it yet. And until all of us have it, none of us have it. And if we don't take that mindset, then we are going to continuously slide farther and farther behind, while the black mannequins who stand out front continue to sell us the ideal and the ideology of white supremacy in black skin or in black face, by saying, look, I've arrived. What is wrong with you Negroes? I made it. Why can't you make it? You know, I got my education. Why didn't you get yours? And they don't even think the fact that many have died and sacrificed their lives so that they can be in a position to have these jobs or to have these opportunities. You know, and until we as a people acquire what is called a central nervous system, where your central nervous system communicates with your brain and your body. So if your pinky hurts, your central nervous system says, tells your brain, your pinky hurt. If your toes hurt, it tells your body, your brain, oh, my toes hurt. Because the nerves are connected. It's a central nervous system. Whereas if your body is hurting in one area, the whole body knows that you're hurting. Our people need to have a central nervous system. Where if Jazz is hurting in New York, then I'm hurting in South Carolina. You know, if another brother or sister is hurting in Florida, then I'm hurting here. We have to feel the pain of one another and then respond to that pain in unity and in unison to send whatever resources we need to that area to put a stop to that pain. That is how the body works. That's how the central nervous system works. So we have to learn how to act and function as a body of people in a hostile environment. And until we learn that, then we're going to continue to struggle. We're going to continue to suffer.
Right. That is so sad. So, is there anything else you'd like to add in today's topic?
Well, I'll just say that, as far as us studying the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, let's not stop at the 1963 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and let's grow to understand the 1967, 1968 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who grew into a man who understood that our people must love one another, that we must fall in unity with one another first, and that we really need, and particularly in this dispensation of time, to come together as one and put pressure on those forces that oppress us so that we can deal with each and every community from a position of strength and not from a position of weakness. And I would hope, Jazz, that those who would hear these words would have renewed strength and grab the faith to overcome, as the book says, the faith of a mustard seed to remove mountains. Because all of us are facing mountains in our lives, and they seem insurmountable. But if we have faith in ourselves and faith in a power greater than ourselves, then we will summon up the power of our being to overcome those mountains that are in our lives. And we all can do that if we work together, if we come together. So I really appreciate your time, and I don't know how much time we have left, but this has been a very beautiful interview, and I hope that our people get something from it. I try not to be too passionate on this one so that you all clearly hear what I have to say.
No, you were very passionate, and it was very well received. And so I appreciate everything that you say. I'm so grateful that you were able to meet with me today. Is there any way that we can, if the general public can want to reach out and get in touch with you, how could they?
They can call you, and you know how to get in touch with me.
That is true.
But pretty soon, I'm going to have something out there that our people, not just in South Carolina, but throughout the country, will be able to get in touch with me. And hopefully, the little that God has blessed me to learn in my sojourn in America, and has blessed me to learn from the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of others who impart wisdom and knowledge to me and others, that I will grab that and take it on my shoulders and stand for our people, stand for the voiceless, stand for those who have been receiving injustice. And if we as a people would all stand, they could never come at one of us. They will have to come after all of us.
Right.
And unfortunately, we leave our leadership out there on an island by themselves where the enemy can pick them off while we sit silently behind in cowardice and applaud their work and don't really support them in the efforts of standing up for our people. We have to stop that madness. We will pay preachers who will not lift up their voices on behalf of the community, who will not take a stand against the evils of white supremacy, who will not take a stand even at the evils that are going on in our own community. We will pay them thousands upon thousands of dollars a week and will not stand for those activists who are on the ground, who are in need of your help. So we have to change. We have to have a paradigm shift in our thinking of those whom we say that will stand for us. If we say we applaud, we applaud you, Dr. King. Oh, we applaud Malcolm X. We applaud Farrakhan. We applaud all those who are standing up for us. But most of the time, we don't support them at all. Most of us don't support them. But we have those who say they represent God, who say they represent Allah, who say they represent the prophets of Israel, come before us and say nothing about the horrific condition under which our people live. Won't challenge those in authority and power who oppress the people, and yet we give them our largesse for doing nothing. So we have to shift our way of thinking and support those who are willing to give their lives for the rise of our people, and stop backing cowards and back real men and women of strength who love you and who are willing to stand up and take whatever is necessary for our freedom, justice, and equality. That is the one thing that really gets my, as I said, on Family Matters, grind my gears. I saw that with my son. But anyway, we have to look at how we're treating those who really stand for us. We have to support them.
Right.
I'm not knocking the stronger preachers. But there are a few. I'm talking about the weak ones that most of us support for doing a damn thing for our community. So we have to change how we look at that. And I'm not trying to preach or bash because I want our brothers in the ministry to be stronger, to really represent the power of Jesus Christ, to really represent the power of Allah, to really represent the power of Yahweh or Jehovah, the prophets of Israel, to the people. You cannot represent that power being a coward. You can't represent that power being afraid. You can't represent that power just standing inside those four walls. When it's time for you to speak out for justice, you sound like you've been castrated. You sound like you've had a hysterectomy or something. You don't have any ovaries left. We have to man and woman up and stand for what's right, stand for what's true, stand for freedom, justice, and equality for all, regardless of class, creed, or color. But we have to stand for our own first and then spread that to the world.
Right. Well, there you have it, guys. The time is now to go ahead and make a change and stop being a coward and fight for your brothers and sisters, because you never know when you might need a helping hand as well. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jan.
To continue listening to our broadcast, you can follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher Radio, Tumblr, and Blogspot. If you would like to be on our show, you can contact us at i5theheat@gmail.com or call us at 718-844-0581. Thank you for joining us. You are listening to I5 The Heat Radio.